Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day. Let's just jump right into it. We just thank God for all the mothers, because obviously without mothers, we wouldn't be here. Thinking about mothers in Scripture, there's more relationships, more mother-child relationships discussed in the Bible, I would gamble to say, than anything else. And when we think of biblical direction or biblically esteeming mothers, we think of the Proverbs 31 woman. So I just start with that, and then we'll kind of go through the history of Mother's Day and talk through some pretty pristine examples of motherhood, but then also how we should really honor and how we should reflect on and work with our moms. Proverbs 31, though, I'm not going to read the entire song, the entire proverb, but starting with verse 28 through 30 reads, "Her children rise up and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. For many women have done excellently, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful, beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised." But a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. It's Mother's Day. What's the history of Mother's Day? What's Mother's Day about? Well, celebrations of Mother's Day and motherhood can be traced back to the ancient Greeks and Romans. They held festivals in honor of their goddesses. I don't even recall their names. But it also flowed through Great Britain, where servants were given the fourth Sunday of Lent to travel home to spend with their moms. And this tradition became known as Mothering Sunday. Now, as it shifted more into secular holiday, children would present their mothers with flowers and tokens of appreciation, and this custom eventually faded, unfortunately. However, it reemerged in the Americas in the early 1900s as Anna Jarvis, the daughter of her namesake, her mother, who she was named after, Anne Reeves Jarvis. Following the elder Anna Jarvis's death, the younger conceived of Mother's Day as a way of honoring the sacrifices of mothers which they made for their children. The younger Anna purported that when she was 12, she heard her mother pray that one day there could be a celebration of mothers like Memorial Day for all the good that they do, all the good that mothers do. She never forgot that prayer, and when her mother died, she planned and executed in 1908 and held a memorial service in honor of her mom and handed out white carnations. In 1910, West Virginia became the first state to acknowledge the holiday, and in 1914, Woodrow Wilson signed a national holiday into effect so that the second Sunday in May became known as Mother's Day. Now, initially, this day was meant to be spent in church, and afterwards, kids would write long, loving letters to their moms. Carnations, white to mothers. White was to be worn by mothers whose moms were deceased, and red or pink to mothers was to be worn by mothers whose mothers were living. Unfortunately, Ms. Jarvis was disturbed by the commercialization of the holiday and spent the rest of her life protesting the day. But like a locomotive that had left the station, there was no stopping this holiday because it was a means for children to actually honor their moms. Truly to honor their moms as a gift from God that they are. There is no precious gift more so than the good mommy. I say thank you, Mom. So what's a mom? Let's pause, think about that for a second. What is a mom? The formal definition is stated in Noah Webster's dictionary as a female parent, especially one of the human race, a woman who was born a child, correlative to a son or daughter. Now, mother also has a verb form. It's to treat a person with great kindness and love and or to protect them from anything dangerous or difficult. Now, we could make a lot of jokes and have a lot of bit of funnies, and in our lore, there's a lot to be said about moms. Some unofficial definitions of mother include a person who does the work of many for free. See also crazy, masochist, saint, multitasker, teacher. There's some compound words that have been derived from the term mom, such as momster, what happens to mom when she counts to 3, or momager. There's also quite a bit of quipping. I forgot one, a momism, some things that moms say. But again, there's some quips and some witty sayings about moms that we all, that brought laughter to me, like life does not come with a manual, it comes with a mother. Sometimes I open my mouth and my mother comes out, which reflects that no matter what we think, how influential our moms are in our lives. That even when we try and show off what they're telling us, the wisdom that they impart, as we get older, we can't help but to exude some of what they put into us. Something I picked up on and I didn't think about, but your mom when you understand why Mama Bear's porridge was cold. You come to understand that a Mombie, Mombie, is an exhausted mother who feeds off of coffee and survives off of wine. If at first you don't succeed, try doing it the way your mom told you to do it from the start. If a woman talks and nobody's listening, her name is probably Mom. Mom just wanted to say, Mom, I just wanted to say that you forgot to remind me that today, this Sunday is Mother's Day. Mom upside down is wow. For me, though, my mother was a role model before I even knew what a role model was. And unfortunately, I didn't make up that saying, but I thought it captured the day for me. It was a day to recognize our role models. Now, one of the critiques, though, of the Bible is that this is a book about men. I mean, you have Adam, you have Moses, Abraham, you have Jesus, you have Paul. But what we don't really think about is that's not truly a true statement, because we have Adam, we have Eve. We have Moses, we have Miriam. We have Abraham, we have Sarah. We have Jesus, we have the three Marys. Now, I don't say that the three Marys are on the same level as Jesus, but the Bible is chock full of stories about man's relationship with his moms, men's relationships with women. And there's specific women who embody what mothers were, are, and should be. I mean, obviously Eve was the first mother. She mothered mankind. But we then flow through to Sarah. And Sarah, yet I have borne a son in his old age, in my old age. She laughed with joy at what the Lord had done. Isaac would go on to continue the legacy of his father Abraham. So, and I say that because from Sarah we can learn laughter. But more importantly, if Abraham is the father of many nations, what does that make Sarah? Sarah would be the mother of many nations. But then it's kind of interesting. You have Sarah and then her antithesis, or her arch enemy, Hagar. Hagar was an Egyptian slave and a maidservant to Sarah, the wife of Abraham. She didn't have much to say about anything in her life, especially not becoming Abraham's wife. But though her status changed when she birthed Ishmael, she was still secondary to Sarah. From the mother Hagar, we learn how to be obedient and persevere because she listened to God, followed her instruction. She too birthed a child who became the father to many. Let's give a deeper dive to a mother here, Jochebed. She was a mother with a plan. Now, a new king in Egypt had come to power who was under no obligation to honor Joseph's deeds in Egypt and or to keep the special arrangements with the Israelites. Okay, this is talking about Moses' mom. She was worried, the king at the time was worried about the Hebrews outnumbering and overtaking the Egyptians, so he made them slaves. He enslaved the Hebrews, and he also commanded Hebrew midwives to kill Hebrew babies when they were born, and they didn't listen. So then he gave them a different decree. This was in Exodus 1. He said, every Hebrew boy that is born you must throw into the Nile, but let every Hebrew girl live. Now a Levite woman, Jochebed, gave birth to a son and hid him for 3 months. That's 3. Exodus 2 tells us that when she could hide him no longer, she covered a papyrus basket in tar and pitch and placed the baby in it. Then she set it on reeds along the bank of the Nile. Jochebed's daughter, Miriam, Moses' sister, watched to see what would happen here as the Pharaoh's daughter went to bathe. When the Pharaoh's daughter saw the basket, her own servant, when the Pharaoh's daughter saw this baby in a basket, she found it crying, and knowing she was the Hebrew child, she felt sorry for him. Miriam then spoke up and asked her if she should take the baby and fetch a Hebrew woman to nurse the baby. The Pharaoh's daughter agreed, and Jochebed returned with her daughter to nurse her own baby. The Pharaoh's daughter paid Jochebed to nurse and raise the baby until he was old enough to come live with her. Then she adopted him as her own and named him Moses. Jochebed was determined to find a way to save her son, and God blessed her plan. Her son Moses went on to free the Hebrew people from Egypt. He led them out of the desert toward the promised land in accordance with God's plan. After Jochebed, we have Samson's mom, who was barren, but because of faith, she conceived Samson. We have Naomi, who shared her faith with Ruth, who became the great-grandmother to David. We have Hannah, the mother of Samuel, who prayed for a son. God blessed her with Samuel, the great prophet to Saul and David, the first two of the Israeli kings. We have Elizabeth, the mother of John the Baptist, but we also have Mary, Jesus' mom. Now even while she was dying, Jesus cared for his mother and gave her a new son to love her. Mary was blessed among women, for she was chosen by God to bear his son and raise him. And though there was death, there was yet joy for Mary, as her son did not stay dead. He rose again from the grave, securing eternity for her and all who would believe. She is an example of a mother getting after it. Excuse me, I've just totally lost my place here. That she is truly an example of a mother having an enduring heart. We're going to rewind back to Mary in a minute, but let's just take a second. I want to talk about a different Mary. As we know, the Bible speaks of at least 3 different Marys, one of them being Mary Salome. She's probably one of the more unheralded figures in the Bible, but she's a really good example of a follower of Jesus and what following him and knowing him and understanding him and advocating for your children can yield. She's truly the OG soccer mom. Matthew 20:20 reads, "Then the mother of the sons of Zebedee came up to him with her sons, and kneeling before him, she asked him for something. And he said to her, 'What do you want?' She said to him, 'Say that these 2 sons of mine are to sit, one at your right hand and one at your left, in your kingdom.'" Don't let my voice impressions distract you. Jesus answered, "You do not know what you're asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I am to drink?" They said to him, "We are able." Now, this scene occurred just before Holy Week. Jesus had gathered his disciples and told them that he was going to be arrested by the priests in Jerusalem, condemned to death, handed over to the Gentiles, mocked, flogged, and crucified. He capped off his prognostication with, "I will be raised to life on the 3rd day." Now, to someone not familiar with Christ, even to those who were, this would have been cause to flee. Rationally speaking, for hearing some man talk about he's going to be raised from the dead, this was crazy talk. This would have seemed like crazy talk. But Salome saw this as an opportunity potentially for her own kids. This is where we pick up with Salome's motherly request. Now, her sons had been rolling with Jesus for about 3 years, along with the other 10 disciples, and she was likely one of the 3 Marys at the crucifixion, one of the Marys who went to anoint Jesus' body in the tomb when he was post the crucifixion, just after resurrection, which they didn't know at the time. She was truly a follower of Jesus. She was one of the followers who often goes unnamed, who listened to Jesus. She prayed with Jesus. She followed Jesus. She got to know Jesus. She was a follower, and though not one of the 12, a disciple. And I give this backdrop because she was not merely some quack that ran up to the coach after the game talking about, "You need to play my kid for your team to get better." Or she was not a stage mom who was charging the director to put my girl in front of the crowd or at the front of the stage during a routine. She believed in Christ and the message he brought. A mother knows who to follow, and she tries to live in accordance. And this would have been a different story if this had been someone else or something else. In other words, the person that had been following, that she'd been following. But she followed Jesus and came to him, not in rage, in an uppity posture, or with any vigilance. We're told here that she came and kneeled down in Christ's presence. So she approached him with humility. She gave him deference, setting example for her boys on how to approach others. It's many a times as important how you go about doing something as it is what you do. Moms give up so much. They give up who they were before they were mothers. Their hobbies, their plans, potentially their dreams. They may put their lives on hold so their babies can live theirs. They deal with so many emotions that they internalize just to be mothers. Don't ever discredit a mom. Until or unless you become one, you will not understand him. What is it like? What is it like to go from being Natasha Andrews, Valeria Jacobs Andrews, Melvina Jacobs, or Lina Andrews to Naja and Jaden's mom, James and Diara's chauffeur, or any other adjective that describes the duties you carry out for your offspring? Even here, Salome is referred to the mother of the sons of Zebedee. One of the most influential figures in the lives of two of the most influential men in the New Testament is referred to as the mother of her children, not by her own name. But despite the lack of credit or glory, Salome was willing to be lessened. She was willing to lessen herself for the benefit of her boys. She was willing to lessen herself for her boys. And it is one thing to approach someone from a position of strength, from a position of pride. But Salome put herself out there to advocate for her boys. And many times, being a mother means sacrifice. She asked Jesus for a favor, and Jesus asked her what she wanted. She laid it on the line for him. She interceded for her boys, and she said, "Grant that one of these two sons of mine sits at your right, and that the other sits at your left in your kingdom." She spoke to Christ on their behalf, hoping to improve their standing. Now, Jesus only had nicknames for three of his disciples, Peter, James, and John. Not only were her boys now part of the 12, but two of her sons were in Christ's inner three. 2/3 of Christ's inner three were her boys. In part because of her presence and her actions, these sons of thunder were as close to Jesus as any humans were. James, one of the two sons, went on to write an epistle and be a leader in the early church. John became known as the beloved disciple. The author of the book of John, the Gospel of John, as well as the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd books of John. As the church age began, James was the first apostle killed in Acts 12 and 2, while John was the last apostle to die, so they were the bookends of the apostles' lives. John's epistles, written late in his life, hint that he still had great fervency of spirit later in his life, especially in his denunciation of apostates and deceivers. Only the best for mama's boys was Salome's position. Jesus only had two hands, and she wanted both of her boys to sit at each side. But Jesus says to not her, but says to her boys, "You don't know what you're asking." Jesus said to him, "Can you drink the cup that I am to drink?" Now, Mom had put herself out there making a request. Jesus put the boys to the test. The boys knew Mama knows best and responded with a confidence that Mom helped to inspire. Moms challenge their children and their kids to strive and instill in them a confidence to excel. When this happens, they may not be. When this happened, when this situation here with Salome and the Johns and Jesus, Salome, John, and Jesus, they weren't senior saints. They weren't old men, but they were grown men. Okay, but she was still interceding on behalf. This goes to the note that parenting does not end when the children are no longer children. These were men, and their mom had interceded on their behalf. The mom's presence, the mother's opportunism, set her kids up for greatness. James and John replied affirmatively to Jesus' question about would they drink of the cup that he was going to drink, and they stepped up to the challenge. I imagine making their mom proud. Thank you, Mom. Mary, the mother of Jesus, is possibly the most famous mother of all time. And it's ironic thinking that there were humans that raised the living God. Though Mary was not perfect, how she interacted with Jesus was admirable and worth noting. There's very little in the Bible about Jesus as a child, but we did get a glance in Mark 2 where Jesus had stayed behind in Jerusalem as his parents had made a journey there, likely for one of the Passovers, and had left. So they likely went as part of a caravan and, with groups of people, and were expecting Jesus to have been with them. And they left and had been gone for 2 days before they realized, where is Jesus? Where is baby Jesus? Or young Jesus, at least. They backtracked and made their way back to Jerusalem, and they found Jesus. So this is how this scene went. They went back to Jerusalem, and when his parents saw Jesus, they were astonished. And his mother said to him, "Son, why have you treated us so? Behold, your father and I have been searching for you and with great distress. And he said to them, Jesus said to them, why are you looking for me? Didn't you know that I must be in my father's house? And they did not understand the saying that he spoke to them at that time. And he went back down with them. He went back to Nazareth with them and was submissive to them. And his mother treasured up all things in her heart. Those last two lines there, Jesus was submissive to them, his parents, and his mother treasured up all things in her heart are worth a pause. Even Jesus, the living God, was submissive. He honored his mama. So he honored his mother, period. Jesus, the living God, honored his mom. He was submissive. In other words, he listened to her. He honored her. He esteemed her. And in that second piece, so many things happened about her treasuring up all things in her heart. Just think, so many things happened in Mary's life. And within a 3-year span, she birthed a child immaculately, was given prophecy by the wise men, by Anna and Solomon and Simeon, saw a kid who had wisdom beyond belief, raised him just to see him tortured, crucified to death, and to be raised. Time flew, and all of these events that no one else on earth could potentially relate to occurred to her. So she treasured up all of these moments during his youth, during his growth. She stored them close to her heart, kept them on his memories. If you've had a kid, you know that time flies. Time absolutely flies. They go from being newborns and depending on you for the air they breathe, food that they eat, clothes that they wear, to knowing more than you in just 3 years. By the time they're 3, they know more than you, right? But Mary wasn't missing a single moment of each detail, as each detail was being treated like a treasure. She cherished the words of Simeon, who spoke of the light that this baby, Jesus, when he was a baby, was going to bring to the Gentiles, but also the glory he was going to bring to Israel, and the joy that the old woman Anna, who saw him as the redemption for Jesus. So as I spoke about a minute ago, Mary lived through all these people giving this baby accolades, but she cherished these things. Instead of being concerned or jealous or otherwise crazy, she stored these things in her heart. But Jesus, being submissive to him, Jesus, in accordance with the 5th commandment, the first command with promise, honored his mother. We know this in part by how he went out, how when he was on the cross, he took time to address his mom specifically, the only person that he individually comforts, by charging his beloved disciple John, one of Salome's sons, with her care, making her his new son, making him her new son. Now, 2 Timothy 1:5 states, if I am reminded of your sincere faith, which first lived in your grandmother, Lois, and your mother, Eunice, and I am persuaded now lives in you also. We're almost done. Here's the last biblical example of womanhood that I want to talk through. When Paul was preaching in Lystra, he met a young Timothy, his mother Eunice, and his grandmother Lois. A number of years later, Paul reminded Timothy that his faith dwelled first in his grandmother Lois and his mother Eunice. Now, this does not mean that faith is inherited, that it passes down from one generation to another, because every individual, and God knows every individual must make the decisions about their faith with Christ on their own. But there is a very definitive advantage in having a Christ-centered heritage, for it being something that's familiar in your family. We attribute being a mom with giving children more meals, a place to lay their head, clothes to wear, but spiritual nurture is many times wrongfully neglected. Providing for the spiritual needs of a child is a different role as much as is just as important as providing for the physical needs of a child. Eunice taught Timothy the Holy Scriptures. He had known the Scriptures from his childhood, and Paul says this is what allowed him this that made him wise to the good news of the coming death and resurrection of Jesus. Though a child may forget of a mother's words, impressions will be left that time can never erase. Let me say that again. Though a child may forget many of the words from a mother's, impressions will be left that time can never erase. A young girl was in bed with what proved to be a fatal illness. Her mother made sure, though, during her lifetime that she got the best of everything. She went to the best schools, played piano, and danced superbly. She learned proper etiquette. She grew to be class president, captain of sports teams, a straight A student. She had great quality friends. She was the apple of her parents' eye, admired by her peers, praised by her teachers and coaches. She appeared to have it all. Because of her sudden ailment, the doctor was called, and after examining the sick girl, he whispered to the mother. The girl sensed that something was wrong, and she was worried. She was really concerned and sort of went hysterical and said, "Mother, you've taught me how to dance, to dress well, how to conduct myself in the world. But one thing you didn't do was teach me how to die." A good mother will teach a child how to die. Now just hold. Now, this doesn't mean need to be teaching by example. I mean, it doesn't mean that the mom had to die and do it so gracefully for a child to know. But this is a short way of me saying that mothers should need to talk with their children about the good news of God's plan for salvation. Read to them, pray with them, worship with them, teach them the good news. By instilling in them this good news, that should help to abate all the challenges that come with life. This example of the daughter on the dying bed is an extreme example. But if we are comfortable with that which we fear most, many of us fear most in death, via this praying, via this worship, via this teaching, via this worshiping, we should be equipped to handle all of life chaos, all the things that come at us. A Christ-like mom is the prettiest flower that blossoms in the garden of happiness. If your mother is still living, visit her. FaceTime her. Call her often. Be kind to her while she is with you. The day will come when her eyesight, her mobility, her hearing will become less keen, and her heart will cease. If your mother is gone, remember the advice she gave you and the lesson she taught. Of all earthly things God gives, there is one above all others. It is the precious, priceless gift of a loving, Christ-like mother. Take time today. Take time every day to honor your mom. That means make her look good. Simply be a good person. Let her know that you appreciate her, appreciate what she's done for you. Listen to her stories. You might learn something. Tell her stories about yourself. Contrary to fathers, she'll be thrilled to know what's going on with you. I say that in jest, partially. Be excited about her life. This is sort of an aside, but no, it's something that just came to mind. But no matter how things work out for your parents, they want to see you happy, likely in marriage. That is, likely in a marriage that's fruitful. A marriage that works. It's been said, stay together for the kids, but how about make this marriage strong because it honors your parents? Lastly, one way to honor your parents is to love their grandchildren. We all know that moms and dads' real desire is to see their grandkids happy. Happy Mother's Day. Thank you, Mom.